live look tonight from Palm Beach as news broke earlier today that former President Donald Trump was indicted by a Manhattan grand jury.
Now, the former president is the first U.S. president to ever be indicted. Trump's attorney says that he was told of the indictment earlier this evening. The Manhattan District Attorney's Office has been investigating the former president's alleged role in a hush money payment to adult film star Stormy Daniels shortly before the 2016 election. Now, Trump has vowed to keep running his 2024 presidential campaign in the face of criminal charges.
And now more on that breaking news tonight out of New York. The details of the specific charges have not been revealed yet. This is a new type of trouble, though, for the former president, who's currently attempting a political comeback in the 2024 election. Scott Thuman joins us now from Washington and has the latest. Scott?
Well, Trump's critics have been anxiously awaiting this moment, his supporters fighting it. But it is now official. Former President Trump indicted. History in Manhattan, the first ever criminal indictment against a sitting or former president, as a grand jury charges Donald Trump for allegedly paying hush money and trying to cover it up while hiding an affair with an adult film star that could have gone public in the final days of the 2016 campaign. Worst case scenario, the former president and current candidate for a return to the White House could spend up to 5 years in prison, experts say, but feel that may be unlikely even if convicted. Trump for months has been smearing the New York District Attorney Alvin Bragg, claiming the case is purely political. Thursday night, Trump stating he's doing Joe Biden's dirty work. I believe this witch hunt will backfire massively on Joe Biden. The American people realize exactly what the radical left Democrats are doing here. Famed defense attorney Alan Dershowitz.
In this case, federal government refused to prosecute him. The predecessor district attorney refused to prosecute him. And yet this district attorney came in and said, whoops, they're both wrong. I'm going after him on a made-up charge. And the American public should be outraged. This is not the way justice should be done in America.
Either way, the public will have questions.
I think Mr. Bragg should do everything he can with the American people to explain the charges and why he's bringing the charges. I mean, after all, this is a former president of the United States. The American public needs to have buy-in on the charges, needs to understand the process and what's going to happen going forward.
Politically, the future unclear. A conviction would not prevent Trump from running, and some Trump critics worry it could actually help him rally his base, wondering if a man already twice impeached could also survive an indictment and possibly more to follow. As of now, there is talk that Trump would turn himself over to police next week. He'd be fingerprinted and photographed and possibly handcuffed. In the meantime, police from New York to D.C. preparing for protests. Still a lot to be determined in the coming days. In Washington, I'm Scott Thuman.
And we're also getting local reaction tonight. Gwyneth Falloon is live in studio with us. And Gwen, I know you spoke with a political science professor. What is he saying about all this?
Yeah, that's right, Megan. I spoke with Mark Caleb Smith at Cedarville University, and he tells me this is very much unprecedented territory. Like we've mentioned, Trump is the first sitting or former president to be indicted. And while Smith tells me it will help Trump short term, it's not necessarily going to help in the long term, saying it strengthens him for the primary election.
I think this solidifies his relationship with his base. This feeds into his narrative that it's a political persecution that he's undergoing. This is just more of the same that we saw throughout his presidency is what his argument's going to be.
However, Smith says should Trump win the Republican nomination, he believes the indictment will hurt him drastically when it comes to the general election.
It's hard to imagine appealing to independent voters, to suburban female voters who deserted the president in 2020 under an indictment and under potentially other prosecutions taking place.
Now, I also spoke with a local legal expert. If you would like to hear from him, you can find the full story on our website. That's Dayton247now.com. Back to you.
Gwen, thanks. Well, we're seeing a lot of responses, no surprise, across social media to this indictment tonight. Lydia Bice following it all for us. Who are we seeing responses from?
That's right, Adam. Well, even Stormy Daniels herself tweeted, thanking everyone for their support and love. She also says that Team Stormy merchandise and autograph orders are pouring in and to allow a few extra days for shipment. Now, Ohio Representative Jim Jordan, a Republican, simply said, outrageous. Representative Joyce Beatty of Lima, Ohio, a Democrat, tweeted, no person, not even a former president, is above the law. # justice for all. And lastly, Senator J.D. Vance took to Twitter comparing the indictment of President Trump to a video that he saw of a family on a New York subway. He says a week ago, a video circulated of a, quote, lunatic harassing a family on a New York subway. He hurled racial slurs at the white family and threatened them. Alvin Bragg thinks that man should walk free and Donald Trump should go to jail for a fake misdemeanor. Now, we're going to continue monitoring these responses across social media, and we'll update you both on air and online. Back to you.
Lydia, thanks. And we'll have continuing coverage on this indictment of the former president and how it all plays out. You can watch live updates both on air and online at Dayton247now.com, and you can find stories just like this right there on our homepage.
Another big story we're following tonight, that is the weather. This is a live look from our Eco Plumber Skycam over Beaver Creek, where we are at the calm before the storm, as we were talking about, Natalie.
Yeah, definitely so. It was a beautiful day today. Got that sunshine, temperatures very comfortable, right around what we typically would see for this time of the year. But active weather is on the way. Here's a look at our code red weather alert. So a couple of things going on here. We have a severe risk tomorrow night, followed by very strong winds during the day on Saturday. So for tomorrow night, potential for some damaging wind gusts with a line of storms making its way through. That will also bring the potential for an isolated tornado. Still some uncertainties with this, but now that we're heading closer into this event, it is looking more likely that we will have an intense line of storms making its way in by late tomorrow evening. Again, we will be seeing those strong winds on Saturday as well, but our severe risk, level 2 threat for severe storms, mainly for our western, southwestern counties, northeastern counties under a level 1 threat, but all of us under some sort of risk for severe storms. The greatest risk is going to be off to our west. Notice a couple of moderate risks. Maybe some spots could be nearing that level 5 threat. We'll see how things really progress tonight and into the day tomorrow. But either way, a very significant threat for severe storms across much of the central U.S. heading into the day tomorrow. But as far as us right now, we have those 40s across the board. And then heading into the day tomorrow, we will be seeing the potential for that rain and then eventually severe storms. I'll time it out for you coming up.
Natalie, thanks. Hamilton police are investigating after they responded to a call for a child with a gunshot wound tonight. We're told the victim was rushed to a nearby hospital, but there's still no word on their condition right now. We are working to gather more information, and we'll be sure to update you with that new information, both here on air and online at Dayton247now.com. And take a look at this. This was the scene after a semi-truck crashed into a Miami County home earlier tonight. Very much a lot of damage. Now, it happened just after 6:30 off State Route 571 and 201. We're told the driver and one woman who was actually inside this home at the time were both taken to the hospital for their injuries. Both are reported to have non-life-threatening injuries, thankfully. Crews are expected to be at that scene, though, still for several more hours until around 2 or 3 a.m.
Live pictures over downtown Troy tonight. This as a judge announces a decision regarding the demolition of the city's old courthouse building. A judge determined that the site of the old courthouse and Oddfellows Hall on Main Street not an imminent risk of collapse. They're now ordering the owner of that building to support a busted header and sagging bricks along one of the walls. The demolition was halted yesterday, we told you, and an emergency hearing was called after demolition began despite the city not authorizing it. The city's mayor issued this statement after the judge's ruling. In it, Robin Otis says, quote, "We will be monitoring compliance with Judge Wall's orders, which we believe are in the best interest of the community at this time. We will also be completing our own structural engineering analysis in anticipation of Tuesday's court hearing on the city's injunction against the property owner."
Tonight, 2 Brookville women reported missing after vacationing in New Mexico have been found safe. Melena Brown has been following this story for us throughout the day and shares the updates.
Both Robin Bodine and Tracy Shue were found earlier today, 2 days after they went missing. If you take a look here, they were found in Catron County, New Mexico. There are quite a few national forests in that area. When I spoke with the police chief of Truth or Consequences, New Mexico, where the women were vacationing, he told me that their car ended up getting stuck in the mud, and unfortunately, they had no cell service. I was able to speak with the family earlier today before getting in contact with the chief of police. And he told me that they were contacted and that the family is headed to New Mexico to reunite with their loved ones. As we get new information on this story, we will be sure to notify you here on air and online. For Dayton 24/7 Now News, I'm Melena Brown.
Melena, thank you. Montgomery County officials, they were responding after the FDA approved over-the-counter Narcan. The county experienced 319 overdose deaths in 2022. Narcan can be used to reverse overdoses of multiple different drugs, including heroin and fentanyl, and is something the Montgomery County Community Overdose Action Team believes should be readily available.
Narcan at minimum is a life-sustaining. Maximum, it gives you the ability to save lives. Even if you don't have someone, a loved one in your family or in your life that is suffering with substance use issues, this happens in public.
Now, no official date has been announced for when Narcan will be available to purchase, but a representative for the product manufacturer said sometime late in the summer.
Dayton police are asking for help finding two most wanted suspects tonight. We're told 26-year-old Micon Mareka is wanted out of Montgomery County on probation by a probation violation for assault on a police officer and also domestic violence. And 30-year-old Angelo Burden is also wanted out of Montgomery County on a probation violation for possession of fentanyl. Now, authorities are asking you to call Dayton police at 937-333-2677 if you have any information on the whereabouts of either of these suspects.
Continuing coverage tonight on the indictment of Donald Trump, the gatherings in support and protest of that decision tonight.
And yet another toxic train derailment causing residents to evacuate. The bipartisan bill announced today to help prevent more derailments like this in the future.
Plus, tracking a threat for severe storms by late tomorrow, as well as very windy conditions that's coming up. Here's a live look from our Eco Plumber Skycam. You're watching Dayton 24/7 now.
Continuing coverage tonight on the indictment of former President Donald Trump as groups of people gathered outside of the Manhattan District Attorney's office today cheering that news. Video you can see shows the crowd carrying signs and banners that read, "The time is now and Trump is over." Meanwhile, law enforcement officers are still standing by even at this hour.
And as we have said tonight, Donald Trump, the first president ever to be indicted of a crime. The Manhattan grand jury's timing, though, is surprising after it was expected to take a break for a month. Now, Trump last Saturday slammed that investigation into hush money payments while on the 2024 presidential campaign trail.
The new weapon being used by out-of-control, unhinged Democrats to cheat on election is criminally investigating a candidate.
But Trump actually praised the grand jury yesterday when it appeared an indictment was in question, writing on his Truth Social that he gained such respect for this grand jury. It's not immediately clear when Trump will be arraigned in New York.
And we're going to continue to follow this story, and as we learn more, we'll be sure to alert you here on air and through our Dayton 24/7 Now app. With that app, we can send breaking news alerts directly to your phone. You can download the app in the Google Play and Apple app stores.
Well, quiet evening, but tomorrow night and into Saturday, we have our code red weather alert due to the potential for some strong to severe storms. As of right now, mainly just clouds increasing, but we will eventually see rain building into the area. So moving through time, quiet overnight, but by tomorrow morning, showers making their way in. So plan on some rain for that morning commute tomorrow. Scattered rain on and off throughout the day, potentially even a few storms by the evening hours, but it's really late tomorrow evening. Likely around midnight or so, perhaps a little earlier, a line of storms making its way through the area, bringing the potential for some damaging wind gusts. There is a low wind tornado potential with this too, so that's something we're going to be monitoring very closely. So certainly want to stay weather aware for tomorrow. And we do have Timothy Boyd here to tell us a little bit more about how those tornadoes form.
Yeah, so when you think tornado, you think lots of wind, but how exactly does this happen? So what we have is we have our low-level surface winds, and you have your stronger upper level winds, and they kind of create this rotating column of horizontal air. Now, when you have a thunderstorm, these storms are built by updrafts. That's why you see those anvils off in the distance in the summertime. And this creates a spin, which creates your wall cloud. Now, if that wall cloud doesn't reach the ground, that is just a funnel. But if it does reach the ground, then you have your tornado, and we all know that can get pretty dangerous. So the terminology for this, we have our watch, which conditions are favorable, so you'll want to pay attention to the news, your local weather source for dangerous information on these. And then warning, that's when you want to take action. One's been spotted either via radar or a professional spotter. And then we have our emergency, kind of similar to a warning, just a little bit more dangerous. These are typically bigger systems that are moving into heavily populated areas.
Tim, thanks so much. Residents in a small Minnesota town were forced to leave their homes overnight after a train derailed and caught fire. Luckily, no one was hurt and the evacuation was just a precaution. Residents have since been able to return home. Investigators say BNSF Railway says at least 22 cars carrying ethanol and corn syrup were involved in that accident in Raymond, which is about 2 hours west of Minneapolis. Now, this comes as several derailments are being investigated, including one in East Palestine and another in Clark County. Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg says that despite this, the industry is making progress in its safety.
Typically, in an ordinary year right now in America, there are roughly 3 derailments per day. Believe it or not, it used to be about 5 times that level in the 1980s.
Now, officials with the Federal Railroad Administration and Environmental Protection Agency are going to help investigate what exactly happened. Meanwhile, Ohio lawmakers announcing that a bill is already in the works to increase penalties for railroad safety violations.
Americans from every corner of the nation are understandably concerned about the safety and the accountability of our nation's rail systems.
For far too long, rail corporations have put profits over people, endangering our communities and our environment in the process. And enough is simply enough.
Now, the Rail Act would seek recommendations on train length, weight, speed, and track standards. It would also increase the number of inspections and the maximum penalties for violations. Railroad executives continue to defend their safety record.
99.99% of all hazardous commodities get to destination without incident. So we are very safe. We are a very effective movement of hazardous commodities as well as all commodities.
Now, this bill closely mirrors the Railway Safety Act, which has been introduced in both the Ohio House and the Senate.
All right, here's a live look from our Eco Plumber Skycam over Beaver Creek tonight. It's a little warmer than it was the last couple of nights out here on the Watson's Weather Patio, but we got to talk about for tomorrow.
Right, by late tomorrow evening, tomorrow night, and then into the day on Saturday. Got some strong winds to talk about, but tonight, not too bad.
Enjoy it while it's here.
Right, enjoy the calmness, because tomorrow we have our threat for severe storms. I was talking about that earlier, but we also have some very strong winds in the forecast. So during the day tomorrow, could see some gusts, maybe up to 35, 40 miles per hour, but heading into late tomorrow evening, wind gusts could be even greater than that, and by tomorrow night, maybe some gusts upwards of 50 miles per hour. Same thing as we head into our late Saturday morning, gusts over 50 miles per hour, which could cause down tree limbs, maybe down trees. Also could see some power outages, so we'll want to stay weather aware.
Natalie, thanks. Taking the first step to providing a new place to get groceries and health services in Dayton ahead. What city officials are saying about it. You're watching Dayton 24/7 now. Some major moves in West Dayton, a grocery store, healthcare services, and much more, all coming to the area.
Homeful broke ground on that project today. Mamie Bond tells us how this is one of many projects to help get West Dayton bustling once again.
City and county leaders were all here today for the groundbreaking, many of whom continue to keep their promise to get this community back to what it was. Now, Homeful acquired this land from Dayton Public Schools. Now, we do know that this is 16 acres. A transformation is in progress for the land at 807 South Gettysburg Avenue. Homeful obtained this land in 2019 in hopes of providing West Dayton residents with increased food, housing, and jobs. Now, it's in the process of becoming a reality. Now, all this in an area that is considered a food desert. Homeful broke ground on the more than $50 million project right here. The city of Dayton is helping fund it. Thursday, county and city leaders were all here to mark the occasion.
I am just tickled. I am just tickled beyond words to just share with you how much we see movement happening here in Dayton and also in West Dayton. We all know some history relative to Red Line and how those things have made a very negative impact on this city. But I will say to you, for those who are saying there's nothing happening in West Dayton, I really have to ask you where you're looking from.
There will be a grocery store, primary care office, and even a pharmacy, just to name some of the things that are coming to this area. Back to you.
A story from our partners at the Dayton Business Journal. A Dayton marketing and advertising agency is giving back in a big way. The Ullman Group is donating its North Main Street office building to the nonprofit Omega Community Development Corporation. The nonprofit plans to use the space to help give families the tools they need to break the cycle of generational poverty. And you can read about why they chose to do this right now on our website, that is Dayton247now.com. You can find this story plus others like it right there under the Dayton Business Journal heading in the news tab.
All month long, Dayton 24/7 Now is partnering with the National Alliance on Mental Illness, known as NAMI, to launch Sinclair Cares, Mental Health, Support, and Hope. NAMI is the nation's largest grassroots mental health organization, and it's dedicated to building better lives for millions of Americans affected by mental illness through advocacy, education, support, and public awareness. There's a lot of resources and support groups for you right here in the Miami Valley. Just go to sinclaircares.com or scan the QR code on your screen.
Well, play ball. It is opening day in Cincinnati. We'll take you to a Great American Ballpark for a full day of festivities. You're watching Dayton.